Avaya Charanada Vind Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. ISKCON Bhaktivedanta. Save the whole world, Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Nitya Vishnu Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Pari Vrajaka Asto Tarasata Śrīmad His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki. Nama Charja Sri Haridas Thakur ki. Premsa Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Sadhguru Bhaktivedanta ki. Sri Radha Krishna Gokopana Shama Kundaradha Kundagiri Govardhana ki. Braj Bhumi Shivandama Dama ki. Navadip Mayapur Dama ki. Pushtam Chetra Jagati Dama ki. Ganga Mai ki. Jamuna Mai ki. Bhakti Devi ki. Tulasi Maharani ki. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki. Jai Nitai Go Premanandi. Oh, glorious and glories. Oh, glorious and glories. Oh, glorious and glories. Oh, glorious, Lord, feet of Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. Oh, glorious Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dhammas tu Haya Suto. Dhammas tu Haya Suto. Dhammastu Haya Suto. Netra Kunte Pita Tata. Netra Kunte Pita Tata. Netra Kunte Pita Tata. Dharmastu Haya Suto. Netra Kunte Pita Tata. Sohanji Abhavat Kunte. Sohanjir Abhavat Kunte. Sohanjir Abhavat Kunte. Mahisman Bhadrasenaka. Mahishman Bhadrasenaka. Mahishman Bhadrasenaka. Sohanjir Abhavat Kunte. Mahisman Bhadrasenaka. Dhammastu Haya Suto. Netra Kunte Pita Tata. Sohanjir Abhavat Kunte. Mahisman Bhadrasenaka. Dharmastu Haya Suto. Netra Kunte Pita Tata. Sohanjir Abhavat Kunte. Mahisman Bhadrasenaka. Dharma to Dharma, however, Haya Sutta became the son of Haya. Netra, Konte of Kunti, Pita, the father, Tata, from him, Dharma, Sohanji, Abhavat became Kunte, the son of Kunti, Mahishman, Bhadrasenaka. Translation: the son of Haya was Dharma, and the son of Dharma was Netra, the father of Kunti. From Kunti came a son named Sohanji, and from Sohanji came Mahishman, and from Mahishman Bhadrasenaka. Responsibly, please. The son of Haya was Dharma, and the son of Dharma was Netra, the father of Kunti. From Kunti came a son named Nohanji. From Sohanji came Mahishman, and from Mahishman Bhadrasenaka. Okay, there's no purport. I don't know when the next purport is. Okay, I'll just read through at the end of the chapter because it doesn't look like there's any more purports. The son of Bhadrasena was known as Durmada, and the sons of Bhadrasena were known as Durmada and Dhanaka. Dhanaka was the father of Kritavirya and also Kritangi, Kritavarma and Kritolja. The son of Kritavirya was Arjuna, not the Arjuna we know. He, Kartavirya Arjuna, became the emperor of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands, and received mystic power from Dattatreya, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus he obtained the mystic perfection known as Asta Siddhi. So that's 8 mystic perfections. Now, there's a description of Kartavirya Arjuna earlier on in the Bhagavatam, and he was quite a powerful personality. And he pleased Dattatreya, Dattatreya being a plenary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And because of that benediction, he received 1,000 arms. So he was actually a very, very, very powerful personality. And along with those arms, he received. I'll just see if I can find the description here. It's a very nice description of he became undefeatable by enemies and received unobstructed sensory power, beauty, influence, strength, fame, and the mystic power by which to achieve all the perfections of yoga, such as anima, lagima. Thus, having become fully opulent, he roamed all over the universe without opposition, just like the wind. And as you can imagine, he was very, very beautiful, very powerful, and also very puffed up. He became very consumed with his own might, and therefore he was habituated to showing off and acting in arrogant ways. And actually, one time he was in the Narmada, which is a well-known river in India, and he was surrounded by beautiful women, and a beautiful garland and stuff like that. And he wanted to show off to the women, so he decided to stop the river, Narmada, with his arms. So he was beating his arms in the water, and actually stopped the downward flow of the river and actually reversed the flow by his power. And there was a well-known demon or a Rakshasa had set up a camp along the Narmada River in a place called, I think it was Mahishmati. And he was camping there, and because Kartavirya Arjuna had reversed the flow of the river, it actually inundated his camp. And Ravan became really upset about this. And so he decided to go there and teach Kartavirya Arjuna a lesson. But Kartavirya Arjuna was very, very powerful, and he easily arrested Ravana and basically insulted him and then took him to this place and sort of let him loose, but he was a captive in that area. And it's described in the Bhagavatam how it's just like when you capture a monkey and then let the monkey go just to tease it. And so it's kind of interesting how it's comparing Ravana to being like a monkey. And then later on what happened was Kartavirya Arjuna approached the ashram of Jamadagni. So Jamadagni is quite a famous person. We all know who Jamadagni is. He's the father of Parashuram. Yeah, very, very good. And so he approached the ashram of Jamadagni, and he saw that Jamadagni was there. He was engaged in austerities, and but he got up and he received the king along with his soldiers, ministers, carriers, all this, but he received them very honorably and supplied them with all necessities because he possessed a Kamadhenu cow. So there have been a few personalities described. I think also, what was his name? Gone blank. There was another personality who possessed the Kamadhenu cow, and one of the Vasus tried to steal the cow from him. Huh? Vishishta. Yeah, Vishishta, thank you. Yeah, I often get Vishishta and Vishwamitra mixed up. But yeah, so similar kind of idea. And yeah, so Kartavirya Arjuna thought that Jamadagni was more powerful and wealthier than himself because of possessing the Kamadhenu. So he wanted the Kamadhenu. Yeah? And then, and it's kind of like the Haihayas that are being mentioned here. These are the Kartavirya Arjuna and his people are known as the Haihayas. And they didn't really appreciate the reception, the proper reception they received from Jamadagni, and they wanted to steal the Kamadhenu, which they thought would be really helpful for them in their execution of sacrifice. And so he encouraged Kartavirya Arjuna, he encouraged his men to steal the Kamadhenu from Jamadagni, and they forcibly took away the Kamadhenu along with the calf to Mahishmati, which was Kartavirya Arjuna's capital. And then, as a result of this, when Parashuram turned to the ashram, Parashuram was the youngest son of Jamadagni, and he heard about what Kartavirya Arjuna had done, he became really angry. And this is when Parashuram annihilated the Kshatriyas 22 times. Because what's happening in the 15th chapter is Sukadeva Goswami mentions how Parashuram annihilated the Kshatriyas. So Parikshit was intrigued by this, so he's asking Sukadeva Goswami, well, why did he do that? And then he explains this story of how Kartavirya Arjuna, because of his pride, he insulted the father of Parashurama, and then Parashuram retaliated by wiping out all the Kshatriyas, even though it was a small offense in one sense, but because of the pride, and it wasn't that Kartavirya Arjuna was the only Kshatriya that had become proud. Many of them had become proud, So for this reason, Parshuram, he annihilated them. And also to reduce the burden, because pride is a great anatta. And if we're proud, one of the things that happens from pride is we lose knowledge, we lose understanding. And Prabhupada talks about this in the Gita. He said, without humility, it's not possible to have knowledge. So through humility, we can start to understand. We can cultivate knowledge because we can understand. We can accept our position as being this infinitesimally small jiva. We can understand, we can start to understand the position of Krishna. But if we don't have humility, then as we see with this wonderful story of Kartavira-Arjuna, because he wasn't humble, because he became proud of his prowess, then he actually didn't understand that Jamadagni was receiving him properly, that this cow had been, there's that interesting verse in the Ishavashamidam Sabam Yakinchi Jagatina Taktina Bunjit Margaret Hakashasvitanam. That Krishna, he's the supreme proprietor and enjoyer. But he awards people certain facilities which in order so they can carry out their activities. But we should understand that these things are awarded by Krishna, and therefore we should not covet or desire to have the property of somebody else, because by Krishna's arrangement this person has those things. And we don't, by Krishna's arrangement, or by the arrangement of material nature. So understanding the position of every living entity, and understanding that whatever the facility that they have is due to their past karma, we should not interfere with that. Because what happens is when we interfere with that, we become also implicated in karma. For instance, if we steal something from somebody, we'll get a reaction for that. If we take something that is not rightfully ours, we'll get a reaction. And we see here, Kartavira-Arjuna, he became proud of being very, very powerful and not having any opposition. No one could defeat him. And therefore, he decided to steal the Kamadhenu cow of Jamadagni, who is the father of an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a partial expansion. And so he stole this Kamadhenu, which was being used for performing sacrifice, which was being used to serve the Lord. And as a result, Parshuram became enraged, and he killed him. And he killed all the Kshatriyas. He killed all the Kshatriyas 22 times. And so this is the personality that's being explained here. Then the next person. And he had all these mystic perfections, so he's actually quite accomplished in some ways. And you see the same thing is there with personalities like Ravan and what's his name? Kamsa and Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. They're very materially accomplished. Ravan was a Vedic scholar. He understood the Vedas very well. Yet he didn't understand the conclusion of the Vedas, as Krishna says in the 15th chapter. He's Vedanta Krit Veda Veda Eva Chaham. That I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and indeed I am the knower of the Vedanta. And he points out that by all the Vedas he's to be known. But we look at Ravan. His conclusion of studying the Vedas was not to worship God. His conclusion was to think that he was supreme. And we see, like with great personalities like Hiranyakashipu, for instance, he obviously understood the Vedic text to some extent. He was able to recall so much information, and even we see in the beginning of the 7th canto how he's describing to his lamenting relatives, those who are lamenting after Hiranyaksha passed away, that he was explaining very, very deep philosophy to them from the Vedas, and even talking about how it was all being created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, etc., etc. Yet still, he had this erroneous idea that he was going to kill God. So even though he was, at one level he's accepting God and accepting that God's the creator, he didn't really understand the true nature of God because he was thinking that he could kill God. So again, because of his pride, Maya Prahitikana, his knowledge was stolen by illusion. And you'll see this is the case with all these powerful personalities. They become so incensed by their power, by their beauty, by their knowledge, by all these material facilities they have, that they don't really understand the conclusion of the Vedic text, even though they may study them, even though they may be scholars, so-called scholars in the Vedic texts. They don't really understand the point of the Vedas. The point of the Vedas is to surrender to Krishna. This is the whole instruction of the Vedas. And so all these great personalities, they become completely enamored by their own potency, that they think that they're supreme. And you see so many demons do this. Even in modern day, you'll see so many personalities, the leaders of different countries, they're thinking that they're a power unto themselves. They're thinking that they don't have to bow down to anyone. But someone who's intelligent, someone who's actually humble, realizes that I need to bow down to God. But these powerful personalities, they don't see that. Continuing. No other king in this world could equal Kartavirya Arjuna in sacrifices, charity, austerity, mystic power, education, strength, or mercy. So he's a very, very, as you can see, very, very powerful personality. For 85,000 years, so he lived to 85,000 years. So what age would this be? Someone lives for 85,000 years? Or he ruled for 85,000 years. What age would that be? Which age? We have Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. Which age would it be? Satya Yuga. Yeah, it was obviously during Satya Yuga. For 85,000 years, Kartavirya Arjuna continuously enjoyed material opulences with full bodily strength and unimpaired memory. In other words, he enjoyed inexhaustible material opulences with his six senses. Of the 1,000 sons of Kartavirya Arjuna, only 5 remained alive after the fight with Parashurama. Their names were Jayadvaj, Surashen, Vrishabha, Madhu, and Ujjita. So he had 1,000 sons, and 995 of them were killed by Parashuram. Parashuram was quite extraordinary. And it's just, it's described how when Parashuram was killing the Kshatriyas, he was just roaming around the world with his chopper, just chopping off heads, chopping off limbs, chopping bodies into pieces. He was just killing them all. And no one could touch him. He was so powerful. No one could touch him. And this was all because of Kartavirya Arjuna's insult to his father. Jayadvaj had a son named Talang, because Parashuram left some of the Kshatriyas behind so the dynasties could continue, because as we see described in the first chapter of the Gita, Arjuna points out that you need to have Kshatriyas to ensure that the members of society are religious, because that's the duty of the Kshatriya, is to ensure that the other, the Brahmanas, the Vaishyas and the Sudras are following their religious duty. And of course the Brahmanas, their role is to guide the Kshatriyas. So you can see how there's a symbiotic relationship between all the different Varnas, and they support each other. Jayadvaj had a son named Talajanga, who had 100 sons. All the Kshatriyas in that dynasty, known as Talajanga, were annihilated by the great power received from Maharaj Sagara from Urva Rishi. Do you know that story? Do you know that story? The story of Maharaj Sagara. Isn't Maharaj Sagara the one who brought the Ganga down? Yeah? And well, it's in his dynasty that the Ganga was brought down. It wasn't actually him. But in his dynasty, the Ganga was, one of his descendants brought the Ganga down. And these from memory, I mean, I can't remember the story in detail, but these descendants in this dynasty were burnt to ash, and the thing is, they would only come back to life or be liberated from this condition when they came into touch with the water of the Ganges. And then so the Ganges was brought down and it was kept in Lord Shiva's hair for some time. And then finally, when Shiva felt he had tamed her pride, he allowed her to flow on the planet. And who was it who actually bought the Ganga? Huh? Bhagirath, that's right, because you have a branch of the Ganges also called the Bhagirati Ganga. But these were, anyhow, there's this interesting story there. I can't remember the whole detail. Of the sons of Talanjanga, Vitihotra was the eldest. The son of Vitihotra, named Madhu, had a celebrated son named Vrishni. Where's that connection? Vrishni. Huh? Yeah, the Vrishni dynasty. Yeah. The dynasties, Vrishni was the eldest. The dynasties known as Yadava, Madhava, and Vrishni had their origin from Yadu, Madhu, and Vrishni. Yeah? So the Yadu dynasty, the Madhu dynasty, and the Vrishni dynasty. O Maharaj Parikshit, because Yadu, Madhu, and Vrishni each inaugurated a dynasty, their dynasties are known as Yadava, Madhava, and Vrishni. The son of Yadu, named Krishna, had a son named Vrijinavan. The son of Vrijinavan was Swahita. The son of Swahita, Vishadgu. The son of Vishadgu, Chitraratra. The son of Chitraratra, Shashabindu. The greatly fortunate Shashabindu, who was a great mystic, possessed 14 opulences and was the owner of 14 great jewels. Thus, he became the emperor of the world. And the Markandeya, in the purport, the Markandeya Purana, in the Markandeya Purana, the 14 kinds of great jewels are described as follows: an elephant, a horse, a chariot, a wife, arrows, a reservoir of wealth, a garland, valuable costumes, trees, a spear, a noose, jewels, an umbrella, and regulative principles. To be the emperor, one must possess all 14 of these opulences. Shashabindu possessed all. So it's an interesting description here because it's describing the opulences that one needs to possess to be an emperor. And you'll see in the Vedic texts that, in order to take any position or any responsibility, then one needs to have certain qualities. It's not just, like we see in the modern age, it's someone's very expert at promoting themselves and they get votes. It doesn't work like that in Vedic culture. Just like you'll see, it's mentioned in the 5th canto, it says, Guruna Shastra Pitina Jananina Shastra. I don't remember the whole verse, but basically what it says, Namachyet Samapetra Mityum, that one should not take a position of responsibility, such a guru, a leader, a father, a mother, a worshipful demigod, any of these positions. We don't take these positions unless we're capable of Namachyet Samapetra Mityum, delivering the dependents from the cycle of birth and death. This is the qualification for being a leader. If we don't have that qualification, then we shouldn't take on any position, because what happens is we get implicated in karma. We'll get reactions for misleading. And even there's statements in scriptures, say for instance someone is explaining scriptures, but they give a misexplanation, that they mislead people by their explanation. You get reactions for that. So when you take a position of any type of leadership position, just like we see, say for instance someone becomes the king of a country or a president or a prime minister of a country, they get 1/6 the karma of that country. Can you imagine a country like Australia, how many cows are being killed every day in Australia? And the leader gets 1/6 of the karma of that. Yeah? Because he's not leading them on the path of spiritual life. But if the leader leads the citizens on the path of spiritual life, he gets 1/6 the benefit of leading them on that path of spiritual life. He shares that benefit. So this is the responsibility of being a leader. And if you don't lead people properly, you suffer. And you look at, all these leaders, right? You look at photos of them 2, 3, 4 years after they're no longer the leader. They look like they've aged 50 years or more. Just a result of taking on that responsibility. So it's a serious responsibility when you take on a leadership position, because you're due, and it doesn't just mean leading a country, it means even being the head of a family. You have responsibilities. It means you need to guide your dependents on the path of spiritual life. You need to bring them to the point of spiritual liberation, going back to Godhead. That's the duty of a leader. And so we see this is being described in the scriptures, and it's also been described here, like this what's his name? Shashabindu, yeah? Because he's taking on the role of an emperor. It means that all the people under his care, he has to guide them in spiritual life. And if he doesn't guide them in spiritual life, then he'll get reaction for that. And we see, like, you look at someone like Maharaj Yudhisthira, such a sincere devotee that, because of what happened at Kurukshetra, he was feeling responsible for all those deaths and all that suffering. And so he didn't want to take on the kingdom. But then he was convinced finally. Krishna tried to convince him, Vyasadeva tried to convince him, and finally Bhishma Dev was able to convince him that actually, no, this is all preordained by Krishna. Therefore, you did your duty. Don't worry about it. Take on the responsibility of being the emperor. And so he did. He took on the responsibility of being emperor, and because he was a great devotee of Krishna, then his main business, along with his brothers, was to guide people in Krishna consciousness. And we see that all the emperors in Vedic times, they were seen by the citizens practically in the role of a father, because the emperors would treat the citizens like their own children and ensure that they had everything they needed and they were always well taken care of, and they did not experience any suffering due to lack of food, due to excessive heat, excessive cold. And you'll see, like during the Vedic times, that these emperors, when they ruled the land, there was no shortage, there was no famines, there was no unusual weather like now. The weather's just getting crazier and crazier every year, and this is all due to the impious leaders. I remember being in China years ago, and obviously they had some understanding of the responsibility of a leader, because with the previous dynasties, if there was a famine, the leader was responsible and they'd execute the leader. But now, it's like, if there's some problem in the country, the leader takes no responsibility whatsoever. It's not my job. Somebody else's responsibility. So they're completely devoid of any sense of what is the duty of a leader. Now, there's no more purports, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 verses left. I guess I can just leave them for tomorrow. Any questions or comments at all? Or should I just read the rest of the verses? No? No comment? Yeah.
Previously also they used to...
Start again?
So you're talking about leadership and how these impious leaders are making the world chaotic for us, and how we see today the weather is just crazy. But at school sometimes we're given leadership positions to, as community leaders or everyday leaders. but still they usually treat us unfavorably because of our race and culture. So even thinking about, being able to talk with the big leaders of our societies today, it's a hesitant decision that we take. It's hard to make the decision whether we should actually go and talk to the leaders of our world today.
Well, you see that Prabhupada would often meet leaders, and you listen to his talks when he was speaking to these people. He would speak very strongly. He wouldn't shy away from telling them, what their duty was. That he would meet ambassadors. He would meet, he met the Prime Minister of Mauritius, and he met so many big people, professors and clergy, and he would tell them straight. Even here, you can see the lectures when he met the clergy here. He told them straight. But of course, Srila Prabhupada, because of his purity, he can talk like that. But for us, that's a little bit more difficult. So the first thing is that we ourselves, there's an interesting Vedic aphorism, Apani-Acharya Prabhuji Vera Sikaya. So it's saying first your behavior should become ideal, then you can preach. So our first responsibility is to become ideal people ourselves. Because it's not going to be very effective. Just like, you see sometimes, I don't want to talk about it, but sometimes people will try to present these very, very high morals to other people, but they themselves don't follow. So what's the value of that? What's the effect of that? You don't take it seriously. But if we are able to live ideal lives and model this ideal behavior, then when we speak, people will listen. Not everyone, but some people will listen. So our first duty is to become ideal. And you'll see that this, Krishna consciousness society and the process of Krishna consciousness is equipping us to become ideal people. Because only then, when you become ideal, will you be able to have effect. And that's Prabhupada wanted us to preach to these people and to have effect. But it's only when we become ideal that we'll be able to change that. When we change our own heart, then we'll be able to change the heart of others. But if we can't change our own heart, how are we going to change the heart of others? So this is your responsibility, to become ideal. Inspire people to become God conscious. Inspire people to set a proper example. Because that's what's lacking in the world now, is just good leadership. There are no good leaders. I mean, you look at any Prime Minister or President or whatever they are in any place in the world, they've got no idea what their duty is. They've got no idea what the responsibility of their role is. And as a result, I mean, like most the leaders in Western countries, at least, are thinking that the responsibility of the leader is to further economic development and sense gratification. They're completely misunderstanding what the goal of life. They have no idea actually what the goal of life is. If they understood what the goal of life is, then that is how they'd educate the citizens, and they'd ensure, I mean, look at the amount of sinful activities that happens in any major country or city in the world. That's the responsibility of the leader, is to curtail sinful activities. But they do the opposite. They promote sinful activities. They facilitate, they enable sinful activities. Therefore, we see that the world is going crazy. Because they just don't know what their duty is. So that's up to us, just to educate them. And the only way we can do that is by becoming ideal ourselves. Because the brahmanas are meant to lead society, but we have some notion of what a brahmana is, but we're not really functioning as brahmanas yet. Some are, but not many. And Prabhupada said ISKCON was to make a class of brahmanas. Okay? Thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivedanta ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Jai.
Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavangstam Sri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Shadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanitanstam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,